Shalom, everyone. I hope everyone had a nice weekend, a good Shabbos. This week, we're observing the 24th day of Teves, which comes out this Tuesday, which is the yortzeit of the Altareba, the founder of the Chabad movement, whose name was Rabbi Shner Zalman. He lived in the town of Liadi. He's very often called Rabbi Shner Zalman of Liadi for that reason. We also call him by other names. He's called the Altareba, affectionately by the Hasidim, the old rabbi or the elder rabbi. He's also called the Rav for the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law that he wrote, called Shulchan Aruch Harav. He's also called the Balatanya, the author of the seminal work, the Tanya, the classical work of Chabad Hasidic philosophy. He's called by many of these names, but affectionately we call him the Altareba. The Altareba was born in the late 1700s in Belarus, in White Russia, and he lived there for most of his life. He was raised in a very pious home. His father, Reb Baruch, was a great Talmud Chacham, a great scholar, a great Torah scholar, and he was raised in that environment. At a young age of 12 years old, he was admitted to the elite Chevra Kadisha, which was today the Burial Society. In those days, though, it was a elite society group of great Torah scholars. They were called the Chevra Kadisha, and there was a tremendous initiation process to get in, and it was unheard of for someone who was only 12 years old to be admitted into that remarkable group. When he got a little older, he came to a very difficult fork in his life. He was a tremendous scholar at a very young age, perhaps in the early 20s or late teens. He mastered the codes of Jewish law. He mastered the entire Talmud. And it was time for him to move on and to seek greater horizons in his life. So the story goes that he left home with the blessing of his father and his mother, and he came to a fork in the road. On one way led to Vilna, the seat of the great Vilna Gaon, Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna, who was the greatest Torah scholar of his day, the greatest Talmudist of his day. The other fork led to Mezrich, the town of Mezrich, which was the home of the Maggid of Mezrich, the great scholar and preacher of Mezrich, Rabbi Dov Ber, who was a successor to the Baal Shem Tov, the leader of the Hasidic movement. And he wondered, where should I go? Should I go to Vilna and study Talmud, or should I go to Mezrich? What can I learn in Mezrich? Well, he thought to himself, in Mezrich, I can learn how to daven. I can learn how to pray. We wonder, how is it possible for someone of that stature not to know how to pray? Obviously, what it meant was that he didn't understand, didn't master yet the deeper significance of prayer, what happens when we pray, and the deeper spiritual dynamics of Jewish life. And that is what he wanted to go to Mezrich to find. And indeed, that's what he chose, and the rest is history. He ended up to be one of the great scholars and one of the great students of the Maggid of Mezrich, and eventually he led his own group of Hasidus, which became known as Chabad or Lubavitch. Lubavitch because of the town in White Russia where it settled for many hundreds of years, and Chabad because of the name of the philosophy based on wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, Chochmah, Bina, and Das, which he formulated through the Tanya and through other of his Hasidic works. The Altareba was a very complex person. On one hand, as I said, he was a tremendous scholar. On the other hand, he was a humanist. He very much believed in people and in helping people and whatever he could do to help people. He was the great ancestor of the Rebbe, whose name was Shner's son, after the name Shner, son of Shner. And the dynasty of Chabad passed on through the generations from the Altareba to the current Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And it's interesting that so many of the qualities of the Altareba were in the Rebbe. The Rebbe was first and foremost concerned about people, helping people, not just in terms of religiously or spiritually, but in terms of physically. Chabad was the first organization under Jewish religious auspices to start a drug program, as we have in Los Angeles, the world-renowned Chabad Rehabilitation Program. And Chabad started drug programs all over the world. Recently, someone called me to reach out to a young man who was in San Diego, And this young man came from a religious home, but he was turned off to Judaism for whatever reason. So I called him up, and the first thing I asked him is, young man, what do you need? What is it? What is it that you need? Do you need to put on tefillin? Do you need me to kosher a home? What do you need? Or do you need something else? Do you have a place to live? Do you have food to eat? Are you taken care of? And he said, Rabbi, I love that you're calling me as a rabbi, but I need medical insurance. That's what I need. I don't have any medical insurance. So I was able to help him, direct him to areas where he could get affordable medical insurance in San Diego, because that's what he needed. And indeed, in Chabad, that is really what it's all about. We ask people first and foremost, are your physical needs taken care of? And then are your religious needs taken care of? During the times of the Altareba, he urged people to stay out in the farms. While other rabbis urged them during the Industrial Revolution, people were coming into the cities, and many of the rabbis, most of the rabbis of his time, urged people to go into the cities because there'd be more Jewish life in the cities. But the Altareba said, no, in the cities it's overcrowded. In the cities, people are starving to death. In the countryside, people will live. They'll be able to have a parnasa, a livelihood. And indeed, that's what he did. During his time, it was the Napoleonic Wars. Most of the rabbis supported Napoleon. Napoleon wanted to free the Jews from their spiritual enslavement of the governments. He wanted to establish the Sanhedrin once again. He wanted Jews to be free to live in the cities. And Altareba was actually against Napoleon because he saw Napoleon had ulterior motives for what he was doing. He wanted the Jews to assimilate, and that's why he was saying all of these things. He wanted them to assimilate, accept the Catholic religion, and no longer be Jews. And the Altareba was able to see through that. And at the end of his life, he actually fled from Napoleon. Napoleon's armies were pursuing him, and he ended up dying in a very, very small town called Haditch, which today people are going there as pilgrims. And we have a center there now in Haditch where people can go and pray at the Rebbe's, Altareba's graveside. Why was he buried in such a far off place? Because he was running away from Napoleon. So the Chabad movement is a unique organization. It's a unique movement. There's nothing like it in the world. And I'm very proud to serve as a Chabad rabbi for over 45 years because Chabad really represents something that most other Jewish organizations don't believe in. And that is to help people in any way that they need, whether it's religious or in terms of their physical well-being. Chabad is there always to help, no matter who they are. Everyone seems to have an agenda these days, but our agenda is Jews, helping people, and even non-Jews. If non-Jews need help, we're there for them as well. So I want to wish you all a good week, and we'll speak to you later on in the week. Shalom.